Welcome back inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center for another episode of Press Coverage. Dan Hope joined by Andy Anders and by Chase Brown as we are now less than 72 hours away from the game. Ohio State wrapping up its final media availability of the week here on Wednesday night on Thanksgiving Eve. Ohio State keeping its normal schedule for Michigan week, keeping the routine. Ryan Day talked about that tonight, said they're even going to fly to the game. They've typically taken a bus up to Michigan, but they fly to all the other road games, so they want to keep the routine. Ryan Day said it himself. What happened the last 4 years didn't work, so we had to make some changes. But once again tonight seemed like a loose, confident Ryan Day. Said that, did not give any specific updates on Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate, but did say that everybody was out there. We had a good day of practice. So it seems like things are trending in the right direction. Seems like, the team's feeling good. It seems like, from talking to the players as well, very much a lot of, we want to do things the way we normally do things, but they know how important this game is. It means a lot to them, especially to guys like Sonny Styles and Austin Siereveld, who we talked to tonight, who are from Ohio, have dreamed of winning this game their entire lives. But at the same time, Andy, I think there's very much we just got to do what we do. And they feel like if they do what they've been doing all year, the same things that have gotten them to 11 and up, they're going to have a good chance on Saturday.
Yeah, I really think tightness played a role in last year's game, and there's been a recognition of that. Like, this game, they know the stakes of this game. They've lost it the last 4 years. You have veterans on this team. You have even young guys on this team who realize how important this game is. And you don't need to build it up any bigger in your head, maybe, than that. Like, get as motivated as possible, but this team's been motivated every week. The process has worked for them every week. The routine's worked for them every week. And that's the word we heard, like you said, from Ryan Day all week long. I think we've heard it about 30 times about routine. Routine. They're keeping the routine the same. And talking to the players, that message has clearly trickled down of this process is working for us. We've built a team that's beaten since Texas, they've won every game by 18 plus points, right? 3 scores. Every week the focus has been the same. The routine has been the same. And they want to keep it that way going into this Michigan game. I think it's really important. Trending in a positive direction with Jeremiah and Carnell. Of course, we talked to Caleb Downs. He, asked him what it takes to get Jeremiah Smith on a podcast. He says, well, be with the guy for a year, ask him a bunch of times, and then eventually he'll come on. But obviously Jeremiah saying on that podcast he's ready to go this week. And from Ryan Day's answer today, no updates, but everyone was out there today, right? I think that's a really good sign in terms of the availability of certainly Jeremiah, feeling pretty confident about going into Saturday, but Carnell Tate too.
Yeah, that Downs to Business podcast, that's up on 11warriors.com right now if you want to go check that out. Really good interview that Caleb Downs did with Jeremiah Smith. We've got the link to that up on our website this afternoon. Before we continue here, I also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, First Bank of Central Ohio, the official bank of 11 Warriors from game day to workday. First Bank of Central Ohio is in your corner. Check them out at fbcentralohio.com. You can see we're all wearing jackets here. It's pretty cold here inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It's going to be cold on Saturday too. It's looking like probably somewhere in the 20s to low 30s. Maybe some snow, maybe not. Maybe it holds off until after the game. But certainly, one of those things that always seems to be a storyline around this game. Now, Ryan Day did not seem too concerned about it. When I asked him about it today, he said, we've been practicing in the cold for a couple weeks. It's going to be the same for both teams. It doesn't affect us at all. Sonny Styles was asked about it. He brought up the Tennessee game last December where, it was very cold in the shoe, and it certainly affected Tennessee more than it affected Ohio State. Now, this is a little bit different. You're playing against another cold weather team in Michigan, a team that seemingly thrived in these cold weather games against Ohio State in recent years. So, Chase, I'll ask you, do you think cold weather, possible snow, big deal? No big deal.
I don't think it's a big deal. Actually, I didn't hear Sonny say something about the Tennessee game, but as you were describing what the weather could look like on Saturday, I was thinking about that game. It was cold. And still, Will Howard threw the ball all over the field. Ohio State scored 42 points in that game. I'm not predicting that Ohio State's going to score 42 points in this game against Michigan, but I do think that for whatever concerns or anxieties the weather might cause, Ohio State's offense should still be able to accomplish what it wants to accomplish because of what Ryan Day mentioned tonight. This is an Ohio team. They practice outdoors. The weather hasn't been maybe as cold as it is this week. As Dan pointed out, we're all in our jackets. I was shivering walking into the Woody today. But I do think that Ohio State knows what it can do regardless of the weather, and with the weapons that they have, I think they're confident in their guys going into the stadium.
All right, you said you're not going to predict 42 points. I want to know, what are you predicting? What is your prediction for Saturday's game?
That's a good question. The closer we get to the game time, the closer we get to kickoff, the more confident I am in Ohio State. I know that there is a psychological barrier that this team has to smash through in Ann Arbor. But when I look at all the different areas of this game, where the teams might match up, there's only maybe a few areas where I give Michigan the advantage, and that's probably the offensive line and their run game altogether, though that run game is pretty banged up, with Justice Haynes probably going to miss this game, with Jordan Marshall suffering a shoulder injury a couple of weeks ago. He's probably going to be playing this game. He's confident that he's going to play in this game, given his comments, which is maybe something that we could also talk about, providing fuel for Ohio State. I think that this team is finally ready to get this Michigan-sized monkey off of its back. And I would imagine that with the spread being around 10 points for this game, that Ohio State is going to want to exceed that in this matchup. And so I feel confident in their ability to do so. It seems like, though, you have to give this game the credit that it deserves, so it might be a little bit closer than we're all expecting. Maybe somewhere in the range of 24-13 Ohio State is kind of what I'm thinking right now. As we get closer to kickoff, that score might change, though.
Yeah, you mentioned Jordan Marshall. He made some comments on Tuesday claiming that he chose to go to Michigan over Ohio State despite being from Cincinnati because there were some people he didn't like at Ohio State, and talked about his relationship with Tony Alford. Of course, Tony Alford was the running backs coach at Ohio State when he signed with Michigan. Tony Alford then going to Michigan. I think that Jordan Marshall was insinuating that there were other unnamed people in the program that he did not vibe with, but certainly comments that I would imagine have probably made their way inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center today, and will probably give Ohio State's defense all the more incentive to want to shut down Jordan Marshall on Saturday, which I certainly think is going to be the biggest key. I mean, I think if Ohio State's defense can shut down the run game of Michigan, you would think they're going to be in great shape in this game. Because like you said, I think that's the only advantage Michigan has. I mean, we know Ohio State is the best defense in the country. We know if we assume Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are going to play, we know Ohio State has the more explosive passing game. It's really that run game, which has been a big variable in this game over the years, is the one thing where you look at and say, okay, Michigan might have an advantage there, and that's what maybe makes the game a little bit scary. But you look at everything else, you would think Ohio State has the advantage. So I'll ask you, Andy, what do you view as the biggest key to this game for Ohio State? And then how do you ultimately see it playing out?
A fast start. I really think the way that Ohio State comes out its first two drives on offense, not just if those drives are successful, but what's the game plan? And is the game plan working? There's no secret that last year they leaned too much on the run game. I think a lot of people would agree with that. I asked a question to Coach Day today, a little long-winded, I think, that I asked Ryan about the over-reliance maybe in the past on the run game, of having the assertion that they needed to win the rushing battle to win this game challenged by Mitchell Melton in the post-Michigan meeting that was famous last year, a story from the book Buckeye Brotherhood by Bill Rabinowitz. I should give credit there. Great book, obviously. I think, to me, not necessarily that Ohio State needs to come out and just chuck the ball around the yard, but there needs to be a balance at least. There needs to be a willing to rely on the passing game if that's what's required. You and I have talked about it on After Carmen, frankly, a couple of times about this game, and just having, if it has to be 60-70% pass, that's what it has to be. Weather might not permit that, but then again, like Chase said, similar weather to the Tennessee game last year, and Ohio State was able to throw the ball plenty in that game. We'll see what the game plan is on those first two drives, and I think it'll be very telling. Just, you don't want to see them run, pass, punt, in those first couple of series. And if that happens and you get behind maybe on the road, all of a sudden you're in a battle. I think this team is just talent, position to position, like Chase said, superior to Michigan. This Michigan team this year, but that didn't matter last year because they played right into Michigan's hand. And so, to me, how this game starts is going to be extremely, extremely important. You're asking me to make a score prediction, I honestly have said all year that I think Ryan did in fact learn his lessons from last year's game. In that respect, they've looked different in terms of how they've approached games, and if they need to lean on the run game, they have. See last week. If they need to lean on the pass game, if they see the weakness there, they have. See Wisconsin, see other games. I am picking Ohio State to win and cover in this game, but I still have plenty of hesitation about doing it.
I'm going to say Ohio State wins 24-17. I think it's going to be a battle. It usually is in this game, and I do think that you add in the running game factor, the weather factor, the road factor. Those are all things that can make this game tight for Ohio State. But ultimately, I see it as one of those games that it's probably going to come down to, can Ohio State do what it hasn't been able to do in this rivalry game the last 4 years? In the fourth quarter and the game on the line, can they make the plays they need to make to go win the game on both sides of the ball? I'm going to say that they do it this year. I think that, like you said, I think they've learned from the past failures of rivalry games. I also just think they're playing with a different level of confidence. I think they have that college football playoff run in their back pocket. Not all of these guys who are going to play big roles on Saturday played big roles on the college football playoff or even on the team. But there's enough of those guys, and certainly Ryan Day and most of the coaches, that they know what it takes to go play their best in those big games of the year like they did last season. And I think if they can draw from that, it can go a long way in this game on Saturday. And so, this is one of those games, like, anything can happen. Nothing would shock me. Like, either team winning big or either team winning close. Anything I think can happen in this game. It's always been that way, and I think especially when you take the fact that Ohio State is better on paper, but the way Michigan's dominated this rivalry the last 4 years, there's plenty of equalizers to make you think that this game can truly go either way. But I do ultimately, in the end, agree with you guys and have Ohio State winning the game. And so we will see on Saturday at noon. Saturday noon, Fox, Big House, Ann Arbor. Andy and I will be there. Chase will, of course, be helping us out with our coverage as well. I know that George Eisner, Johnny Ginter, the throwback 11 Dubcast duo, they will be previewing this game further on Friday morning on 11 Warriors YouTube channel, Facebook as well. So be sure to check that out, and lots more coverage coming the next couple of days as we get ready for the 121st edition of the Ohio State-Michigan game. So we hope you'll stay tuned with us, and we hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. For now, he's Chase Brown, he's Andy Anders, I'm Dan Hope. This has been Press Coverage. We'll catch you next time.